Zero, let's start. Good morning, everybody. And welcome to a new day in Albany. A new day in Albany. The business of New York State, of course, is business. And part of the business of government is to ensure that New York is New York for everyone. This includes the area of finances. For the longest, we have found difficulties in making sure that, that finance was getting to all of the communities. Many of us have wrestled long and hard with this. We have wrestled and tried to find out what we can do. We've tried this, we've tried that. I'm very pleased to say that the Comptroller of the state of New York and his team, aided by all of the people that you see behind me and some in front of me, have wrestled long and hard with this, and we are coming up with some ideas. These ideas will be given to you in a few moments, but I want to put in another word for the Comptroller. Many people would just get into a bureaucratic phase of, we've done the best that we can do, and that's just it, and take it or leave it. That's the way government is. My job is just to ensure money this way or that way, and cover it up with fiduciary responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. I am very pleased to say that we have a state comptroller aided by the business community and government, which has taken this issue to heart. And he has come up with some ideas that we've wrestled with and have put into legislation that you see, and we'll hear of it in a few. Without further ado, I want to introduce to some and present to others the Comptroller of the State of New York, Tom DiNapoli.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Senator Sanders, for that very kind introduction. It's a privilege to be joined by the Senator. I think some of our other legislators will be joining us at some point, hopefully so. I know it's a busy morning here in Albany today, and certainly to have representatives from the banking community here as well. It's very important. What I want to emphasize before I mention some of the details of the legislation is that this announcement really follows a process. It was, I guess, well over a year ago, Senator convened a gathering of bankers and legislators and myself and leaders in the minority community, particularly with regard to minority banking, to say there are some real issues with access to capital. And this is creating problems in the neighborhoods, in your district and many other communities, not just in New York City, but across the state, whether it's an urban community, suburban, or rural. And we know the consequences when communities are underbanked. And in the Senator's unique fashion, he kind of brought us into this discussion and made sure we would not conclude that discussion without a substantive response to the challenge and to the issue. And I really want to express my appreciation. You're going to be hearing from them, and the Senator, as MC, will acknowledge the banking representatives who are here. This consensus proposal came together because the banking organizations that are represented here this morning came together and said, we understand there's a problem. We want to come up with a solution that will work with our requirements in terms of what we owe, in terms of our interests to make sure we have secure banking, but we understand that we need to expand opportunity. So, you know, sometimes here in Albany, the stars don't always align, but in this case, you shot the comet up and then the stars align. So I really want to give particular acknowledgement to our Senate Banking Chair, Senator James Sanders, for really doing a great job in keeping us all on track with regard to the legislation. So the ideas that came forward, again, talking with our counterparts in the banking community, it was very clear that while there were steps we could take, it would require legislative authorization. So that's where my team, and I want to give credit to our Executive Deputy Comptroller Terry Crowley and her team, for working with our colleagues in the legislature to come up with a legislative fix or response that would really get to the issues that are being identified. Now, you all know when communities are underbanked, families and small businesses are left with fewer, sometimes riskier options for managing their finances. Issues like payday loans, check cashing stores, these are issues that we're all familiar with and create concerns. People are often then forced to pay higher fees and interest rates, or access in terms of travel is an issue as well. Traveling long distances just to get simple and basic banking services. So that's why I'm really pleased with the announcement of this legislation today. So we're talking about two bills that will strengthen our existing state banking programs. So these are programs that already exist but need to be expanded. And this will expand access to banking services and responsible lending. The first bill, sponsored by Senator Sanders and Assemblymember Anderson, modernizes the Banking Development District program. It allows participating minority and small community banks to use reciprocal deposits instead of traditional collateral, keeping state funds insured while freeing up more capital for lending. The BDD program has been around for a bit. We always appreciate the opportunity to announce that program, and I know our friends from Ponce are here, but there have been issues of expanding more opportunities, particularly for minority and smaller community banks. So this change, we believe, will enable more of these institutions to participate in the BDD program. The second bill, also sponsored by Senator Sanders and Assemblymember Clyde Vannell, increases the statutory cap of our community bank deposit program from $20 million to $30 million. Again, an existing program that has been undersubscribed, and by lifting this cap, it will help banks do more, from financing for small businesses and farms as well, to supporting home ownership and community development. Keep in mind our role in the Comptroller's office. We are the office that provides the state deposits that power and provide the funds for both of these important state banking programs. Through the Banking Development District program, we have awarded about $505 million to 13 institutions across New York that serve underbanked communities. Through the CBDP program, we have placed $80 million in 4 community banks to support lending and economic development. As I said, and you're going to be hearing from them, we would not be at this point if it wasn't for the support of the leadership of the banking community. These bills are supported by the New York Bankers Association, the Independent Bankers Association of New York State, the National Bankers Association, and the New York Credit Union Association. This really reflects the broad support across the financial community. Again, I want to thank those organizations and their representatives for coming together. Senator, you put out the call. We said we want to engage, and they responded. And that's why we're at this day announcing these pieces of legislation. So these investments and these bills, when they're enacted, and I'm confident that they will go a long way to ensure that state dollars are working in communities that really do need the support from our financial institutions. So again, I'm really pleased to be here. And again, I want to particularly thank Senator Sanders for his incredible leadership, and thank you for being the one to be the spark that got this going. Thank you.
At its essence, capitalism needs capital. If we don't see this capital, we see it in different ways. We see banking deserts. We see areas where there are populations that want to do business and yet aren't doing business. We have seen these things in New York State, and we are not going to stop until we come up with solutions for it. I am very happy that there are elected officials who spend their mornings, their noons, and their nights trying to resolve these issues, and I'm going to introduce a couple of them to you. Let us start with Assemblymember Brian Cunningham.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just say thank you to Senator Sanders, Assemblymember Vannell, and Assemblymember Anderson, and obviously our Comptroller for putting this together today. There's a saying in Brooklyn that we know very well that says Queens gets the money, but we also know that Queens understands the money, and we know for sure that what we understand in our communities, there's so many communities that are underbanked, particularly in communities like mine where you have more check cashing places than you have banks. and that is a challenge. I'm so happy to stand beside our colleagues today and say that it's time for us to make these small legislative fixes that will bring all of us together from the banking communities. I think the Comptroller mentioned it earlier, but it's very rare that you have folks from different sectors of the banking community all saying that we are moving in the right direction, particularly when they're talking about lawmakers in Albany. So again, I want to thank you all for being here today and thank the Comptroller again and the Senator for putting together this slew of bills, and I look forward to voting in the affirmative when it comes to the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have a great partnership with the Assembly, and of course that's why we have Assembly Member Noah Burrows here, who also will speak. Sir.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Senator Jackson, to Tom DiNapoli as well. I think it's a great opportunity when you see things are trending and moving in a positive direction. And these bills, they do that. These bills are going to expand access for capital for minority and community banks serving underserved neighborhoods. And I think that's very important. We're removing unnecessary barriers so local banks can leverage state banks' deposits to lend to our communities. And that's very important. To see communities that have been underserved constantly not have the opportunities that other communities have is something that we want to prevent in the future. So moving from $20 million to $30 million is a great opportunity for our banks to move forward and our communities to do the same thing as well. So we look forward to that opportunity. We're very appreciative of it, and I'm in support of it 100%. And thank you for being here.
To get any bill passed, to get anything passed, you need good teamwork. And I'm very glad that one of my teammates from the Senate is here, Senator Leah Webb.
So I know we have a lot of speakers today, so I'll keep my comments brief. I want to first thank Senator Sanders for introducing two very important pieces of legislation that are designed to increase financial parity and equity for our communities across our state. So can we give Senator Sanders a round of applause? And of course, the People's Comptroller, our State Comptroller, Thomas DiNapoli, thank you for the work on behalf of yourself and your team for all the ways that you help secure our finances. You know, as it already has been said, you know, my district I represent is both rural and urban. And so when you talk about having equitable access to financing, especially in areas that have been historically underserved, these pieces of legislation, quite frankly, are long overdue. We have to continue in our efforts as a state, through legislation, of course, through our budget, to ensure that everyone has a fair chance for economic vitality for themselves and their families and those coming after them. And so by implementing this program, we are helping not only community members, but our community banks to increase their ability for having much more capacity for lending. It also supports our smaller banks, trust companies, national banks. It is a benefit all around for everyone involved. And so your zip code should not determine your ability to be successful in life. And most certainly your economic status should not determine whether or not you can thrive. This is why I'm proud to stand here with all of my colleagues here, calling for us to not only pass these two important pieces of legislation, but that they're ultimately signed into law. Thank you again so much, and I look forward to our continued good work together.
Thank you. Thank you. We also are going to answer that age-old question that has plagued mankind from the beginning of time: where's Brooklyn at? We are glad that we have the answer to that question with Assemblywoman Zimmerman from Brooklyn herself.
Good morning. I am Assemblymember Stephanie Zimmerman, and I represent the 56th District, which is Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights. Before I talk a little bit about banking, the status of banking in the district, I just want to put this in historical context. 4 days ago, we ended Black History Month, where we commemorated a century of progress or commemoration of our participation in this country. Banking back then, and we all know the story of the failure of the Freedmen's Bureau, is not much different in a lot of communities today. A lot of banks aren't making their CRA investments, and unfortunately, access is still a problem, whether you are just a depositor or if you're a small business. And so I say representation matters. The fact that Senator Sanders and and Assemblymember Vanell are members of chairs of the Banking Committee, we have two pieces of legislation that seek to really correct a century of wrongs. And it is important that we all band together, understand that history, and make sure that these bills are signed into law. I'll end just by saying I'm a little different from Brian's part of Brooklyn. I have 7 commercial banks on on Fulton Street, on our main business improvement district. And so access to banking is not our issue, but access to equitable banking is our problem. So thank you so much. Thank you to the man who signs our checks every day for coming to support this measure as well, and let's get this done. Thank you so much.
We will never forget the man who signs our checks. Just as we will never forget one of the youngest members of the State Assembly who has come and who has taken this issue by the horns from day one, where he understands banking deserts because he lives in one. And of course, I'm speaking about Assemblymember Khalil Anderson.
Thank you so much, Senator Sanders, and thank you to all of the folks who are gathered here today to fight for this very important piece of legislation. I want to give a special shout out to Senator Sanders. Let's give him a big round of applause for those who are participating. And of course, to our New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, let's give him a round of applause as well. These folks here are championing legislation with a tiny bit of help from me to ensure that we have a more equitable banking system here in the state of New York. So, as I give my remarks this morning, just as the senator said, you know, I'm Assemblymember Anderson, and I live in a banking district that is a desert, meaning a neighborhood that doesn't have access to financial institutions. And we're here today because those two realities of not having banks, but also having limited resources in general, are why we are united here today. There are folks who have access to capital and resources that should be investing in our institutions. The reality is folks are faced with the need to help access capital, whether it's to start a business or to purchase their first home or to invest in the community they grew up in. Now, we have a program that helps to do this. It's called the Banking Development District Program. It helps bring entities and organizations, and financial, if you will, to underbanked communities across our state. The program isn't working. And that's why myself and Senator Sanders and Clyde Vanell, who's the Assembly Chair of the Banks Committee, have partnered to try to make the program better so that people can have more access. I'm excited that alongside Senator Sanders, we've been able to partner and fight to get Municipal Credit Union to move into the Rockaways, but that is one institution. And just as Assemblywoman Zinnerman said, it's not about the brick and mortar solely, it's also about making sure there's equitable access to the products that they offer, which is very important. So the bill I'm carrying with Senator Sanders will help those who are participating in the program meet FDIC collateral requirements so that institutions can free up more capital for lending opportunities for our neighbors, which is so important. And we know a large amount, and the Comptroller, I'm sure, has audited this, we know a large amount of our businesses here in the state of New York are small businesses, and they need access to lending opportunities, which is important. So we're working on the BDD program. We're working on the bill that myself and Senator Sanders are carrying to help address the issues of making sure that we put state assets into minority institutions, and we have so much more to do. But today's press conference really focuses on how we can build more equity in access to these tools of capital. So I want to thank Senator Sanders for all of his hard work. Of course, the Comptroller DiNapoli for his courage in putting this bill forward in partnership with Senator Sanders and myself and Assemblymember Vernell. And we're looking forward to seeing it get passed this session. Thank you guys so much.
I would be remiss if I did not say that that I am here as the chair of banking, and Assemblymember Vernell is there because we have a speaker and a majority leader that is determined to see a new day in banking. Is determined to see that New York is New York for everyone. So we are very grateful to the Speaker of the Assembly and, of course, the Majority Leader for the Senate. There's something different about this bill, these bills. One of the things different is that usually bills, you have an interest group for it, you have another interest group against it, and there's a fight. And somebody wins and someone loses. And the African saying says, when the elephants fight, it's the grass that gets trampled. This is not the case here. This is a case where the business community, the banking community, all of the elected officials, all of us got together and said, you know what? We're not as successful as we want to be. How are we going to do different? How are we going to make this right? All of us threw ideas forward and gave them to the Comptroller, who found the right person. I almost said threw it on the right person, but I didn't. Found the right person to compile all of these thoughts and come up with things. So I'm very grateful to work with the New York Bankers Association and other groups that I'll mention later, that we have worked hard on trying to find out how do we do this together. And to epitomize that, of course, is their leader, and that, of course, is Claire Cusack. And she is the president and the CEO of the New York Bankers Association, whose name
Thank you so much, Senator. My name is Claire Cusack. I am the president and CEO of the New York Bankers Association. Thank you for the kind introduction. We represent all banks of every size, region, charter, all the way through New York State. I want to thank Comptroller DiNapoli, Senator Sanders, Assemblyman Vernell, our two banks chairs, Assemblyman Anderson, and all of the members of the legislature who are here today to support these two very important pieces of legislation. What the Banking Development District Program and the Community Bank Deposit Program prove is that public and private partnership works. And that's connecting New Yorkers to safe and sound banking services. Why that matters? We've talked a lot about access this morning. Access to banking is not just about access, as everybody's been saying. It's about building financial stability and, more importantly, building generational wealth for families all across this state. It is a shared goal with the legislature from the New York Bankers Association, and we hope to continue building on this going forward. What these bills do are really just a smart modernization of proven programs. Existing tools that needed to removal of some structural barriers so that we can increase access to them. Very smart, and it is also safe. It allows for deployment of public funds in a safe and sound manner as well. But I also want to recognize something else happening here, and Comptroller DiNapoli, you kind of alluded to this, and also Senator Sanders. We have two banks here today. Tom Amell, President and CEO of Pioneer Bank, will speak in a few minutes, as well as Carlos Nadan from Ponce Bank in New York City. Pioneer is here in the Capital Region, a community bank, and Ponce Bank is one of our beloved minority deposit institutions in the New York City area. Both of them are so deeply rooted in the neighborhoods that they serve. That local lending is the money that goes to start a small business, to a first-time home buyer in affordable housing, and to community development that is meaningful. That access point is often starts with bringing people into the banking system who have historically been outside of it. So what is meaningful to me about this today is the collaborative spirit that we've all been talking about. I'm really proud of our work here and the work of our members to get this done, work of the Office of the Comptroller as well, and the team there. This is reflecting, reflecting banks working with government to improve programs and to open the door to access to capital. I'm really proud to support these pieces of legislation, and I look forward to continuing this work going forward. Thank you.
As alluded to earlier, we're going to hear from Tom Amell, who is the president and CEO of Pioneer Bank. This is just a reflection of how widespread the coalition of the willing was to try to get this done, where we have a little bit of everyone here. Without further ado, and ruining your name further.
No, you're good. You're good. Good morning, and thank you for being here. Senator Sanders certainly is getting the accolades he absolutely deserves for pushing this through. But what I want to do is just take a second to talk about the collaboration that Senator Sanders has brought to the banking community. I've worked with Senator Sanders over the years, and what I will tell you he does is he listens. We don't always agree on every one of the issues, but he listens to understand. And today is a perfect opportunity to spotlight the fact that if legislators are listening to the business community and the bankers out there, we're going to do what's right for the community. We're going to do what's right for our customers. So, Senator Sanders, I thank you for listening. I appreciate it. This bill, and Carlos will tell you more about the importance of this bill, but the cornerstone of this is when dollars are put into our community banks, as Claire mentioned, we're able to take those dollars and lend them out to individuals so they can buy homes and start businesses and prosper in our community. So it's important that we raise the cap on this program, which was certainly done significantly. So this is a really thoughtful process by the legislators. Comptroller DiNapoli, thank you for signing up for spending the money and putting it into the banks. And Senator Sanders, once again, thank you for listening to us. And I promise you, we will continue to present more great things for our community with this collaboration. So thank you.
I indeed may be a poor listener, but I've had some great teachers. And many of them are behind me. They have worked with us. And I started out believing that the problems of the world may be in one area. They started out by saying that the solutions were in another area. We are trying to meet in the middle. We're trying to see how we can solve these problems. And we're grateful to have the president and CEO of Ponce Bank, Carlos Nandan, who is going to help get us to the middle.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. And it's a pleasure to be here to explain the importance of these bills. We are engaged all the time in discussions with the senator, and he does listen, as well as the comptroller, and we thank you. And we also visited Assembly Member Anderson's neighborhood, and yes, it is a banking desert. The issue that the bill, or this BDD, is trying to address is one that is very important to us and to our communities. We have two branches that are in BDD areas, and so we do have deposits. The problem is that the deposits today have to be collateralized with securities. So you get $1 million and you buy $1 million in securities. There's no lending associated with it. What the bill does is allows us to use reciprocal deposits. And so instead of buying securities, we can enlist other banks to be sure that the deposits are 100% FDIC insured, but then we can lend it out to our communities. And that's a huge difference, particularly to our communities, because we, as a minority depository institution, all of our offices are in depressed areas that desperately need loans. And when you don't have the deposits to make the loans, then the community suffers. So we are really appreciative of this initiative, and we hope it gets passed ASAP and and into the governor's desk for signature. Thank you.
To every great movement forward, there are some people who are in the forefront, such as myself. We do noisy things, but there are some quiet heroes here. There are some quiet people who they're not looking for the publicity. They're more interested in the results. And I'd like to take a moment, of course, to bring one of them before you. And he is the president and CEO of the Independent Bankers Association, John Wiskowski.
When I first met,
Please,
no,
sir.
so, just want to thank Senator Sanders, obviously Comptroller DiNapoli, Terry Crowley and her team, Khalil Anderson, Ryan Cunningham, and to be honest with you, this is one of the bills that we thought a while ago that needed to be adjusted and changed. And Senator Sanders, the first time we met, he said, everybody wins. And in this case, everybody does win. And it's really amazing to see how far it's come in just a short amount of time to be able to take these bills and put them up for vote and hopefully get signed by the governor. I represent the independent community banks, which is the smaller banks throughout the state. And this is a very important bill, and you heard from two of them, Tom Amell and Carlos Noden, about the importance of this bill, not only to the banks to be able to offer services to the community, but to the community themselves. And it's really one of the things that Senator Sanders and I and the rest of the team that we talked about to make sure that we can take care of the underbanked, underserved communities in New York State. And again, it goes both rural and urban, and it's a very important issue. Both of these bills are going to be very important to go forward. One of the things I will say is that this is the start. There's a lot of great programs in New York State that can be updated, reviewed, updated, and amended to make sure that the banking from years ago is a little bit different than the banking is today. And those programs can be updated, renewed, reviewed, amended to make it much better for the people today. So again, Senator, thank you very much for your efforts. Comptroller DiNapoli, thank you very much for you and your team and Terry Crowley and all the support that we're going to get, and also Assembly Chair Clyde Vanell. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have the next speaker is the one who's going to bring it all home. We usually save the best for last, and this is the case today. We have the president of the New York Mortgage Bankers Association, Sharon Eccles, who will bring it on home.
I'd like to start by thanking Senator Sanders and Assemblymember Anderson and Assemblymember Vanell for introducing this really important legislation, and also to Comptroller DiNapoli for all of his work in coming up with the policy proposals in the first place. I'm Sherry Eccles, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak on behalf of the New York Mortgage Bankers Association in support of this really important legislation. We support this because it will allow for critical investment in communities that need it most. By capitalizing community banks and minority depository institutions with state funds, we can unlock additional access to mortgage lending, small business and farm loans, and economic opportunity to underserved areas all across the state. Distributing these critical resources to the institutions that are most familiar with the neighborhoods and are best able to deploy them in the ways that they're going to have the most impact. New York State has higher than above average unbanked and underbanked populations. Almost 25% of New Yorkers are either unbanked or underbanked. So this is critically important, and as a mortgage lender, we see that the folks that are currently boxed out of the mortgage lending process, in large part it is because they're not participating with banks. Community banks and minority depository institutions are pipelines, bringing new people in, giving them access to credit and loans that will help them become homeownership ready. And as we all know, homeownership is the transformational builder for wealth. So that's one of our shared goals, is to try to help build more equity in homeownership, and we feel like this bill is going to be important in giving people access to the credit they need to be able to become home buyer ready. So thank you again.
Thank you. As I invite our comptroller to come forward, This is your moment, and I will say that to the media, this is your moment for questions. One caveat. If there's questions that make a person look good, please direct them to me. All questions that are hard and difficult, of course, our state controller is here. Are there any questions? I see one straight back there. You're going to have to yell it. And who do you want to answer? Of course. You're going to have to come a little closer, or you're going to have to really pretend you're in the assembly and yell.
Yeah, I didn't hear the whole question,
Yes.
but I think I heard the gist of it. So the Banking Development District program is something that's administered jointly by our office and DFS, Department of Financial Services. So the process involves an application that DFS has to sign off on first. Then the application is sent over to our office. We do our due diligence as well. And then assuming that the bank passes those hurdles, then we release the deposit to the bank. And there are two different programs, different amounts that are available. The issue has been that the process of getting the approval and the sign-off has been onerous. And I have to say, working with DFS, we have streamlined that process, number one. And number two, the issue with BDD has been the issue of having to put up collateral. And the minority banks and the smaller banks just haven't had the capacity to do that. So by changing the statutory requirement, and we've done it in a way that still secures the state's money, we are confident now that more banks can not only get through the process of getting approved, but they don't have that hurdle of having to put up their own collateral. And so our expectation is that the numbers of minority banks and community banks that could participate in this program will increase. Obviously, we need legislation to pass first to be signed into law. Then we will certainly publicize it broadly, and I'm sure our associations will work with us in that regard. And we're optimistic that you're going to see an uptick as far as participation. Again, I didn't hear all the rest of the question, but offline we could get you, I think you're looking for some statistics in terms of participation right now. We can get you that information.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Well, we're certainly hoping and hopeful that the banking community, by having this increased flexibility, will be able to do more as far as lending and support for our small businesses all across New York State. Obviously, there's a lot coming out of Washington that's hurtful to working families. I think we've all been talking about that. Certainly small businesses, which really are the backbone of our state's economy, are facing many, many struggles. So the hurdles to getting financing and support are significant. And we've recognized, again, working with Senator Sanders, our legislative colleagues, and those in the banking community, that we need to have more flexibility so that the lending institutions can do more of what they want to do, which is to support investment in communities. So will this solve all the problems that are out there? Will this solve all of the ways in which we need to respond to the federal cutbacks and the federal impacts, tariff policy, and so on small businesses? No, but this is a piece of providing a greater opportunity for our small businesses to access financing right in their own community where they are operating or hoping to start up a business as well.
If I can, on the same question, as long as the federal government is pursuing a wild goose chase, chasing some DEI thing in their minds, then no, as great a state as New York is, we will not be able to completely undo the damage that they are doing. If they would only look at statistics and say, and look to science and see where is this DEI problem that they imagine. Unfortunately, that is not happening, but at the state, we will do the best that we can to ensure that New York is New York for everyone, and we have a comptroller who is committed to that. Another question. Sir. I'll take it. He may not.
Well, I mean, you know, I spent 2 decades in this building as a legislator, so I have to defer to those who are doing the job now in terms of reaction to that. But look, I think it's fair to say there is a big discussion going on in terms of utility costs broadly, having access to adequate power to keep our economy moving, and how we comport with the appropriately ambitious goals of the Climate Act that we have in New York State. So I think that's going to be one of the key focus of discussion during this legislative session. So, you know, we're looking at some of those issues as well. We've been hearing, although, you know, we're not the PSC that regulates the utilities, we are hearing from many New Yorkers across the state, particularly given how severe this winter has been, the spike in utility bills. You've heard it too, I'm sure.
Oh, I see
and
it.
You've been paying your bills like I've been paying mine.
I've been feeling it.
We're all seeing it. So that memo is in a broader context of an important discussion that you know, I have to defer to those who set policy for the state and set law to what their best judgment is going to be, how they resolve all of those intertwined issues. But they are significant, very important to our families, very important to the whole affordability discussion, and very important to the future of New York.
Well put. Last question. Any last question?
Another off topic. Your Republican opponent is going to be here in a couple hours, I guess, attacking the senator's country for not passing a Roberts bill.
Not passing a
Roberts bill that was forcing Comptroller to hire independent auditors, consultants to conduct audits in the state. Is that bill a good idea?
Well, the Comptroller's office is independent, and we have a very dedicated staff of auditors that are hired through the civil service process. They are not political appointees. I don't know if they're Republicans or Democrats, but they do quality work because they're trained to audit. Some of them are CPAs, all of them are trained auditors. So we already have an office that taxpayers fund that provides independent review of spending. So I don't think it makes sense to duplicate what we already have in the Comptroller's office. I think what I would be more concerned about in terms of an issue of looking at expenses and auditing is make sure that everybody supports my position that we should not be exempting Comptroller oversight as is proposed in the executive budget. I think if you're talking about accountability, we shouldn't be going backwards in that regard, but we should be recognizing that we already have an office that's set up for independent review, auditing at the back end, but just as important, that pre-audit function, reviewing contracts and payments before the money goes out the door, that's very important to preserve.
Well, I want to thank you, Comptroller.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you
It's
to
been
all
a
of our
joy to all
colleagues.
of these folks.
Thank you all.